Welcome to the Coffee Talk with Salty Vixen, where dive into deep thoughts, no topics to air.
Welcome to Salty Vixen's Coffee Talk, a place where I talk about what is on a Salty Vixen's mind. I'm an author, I'm a musician, and a mother, and I am the founder of Salty Vixen brand. Today's episode is titled, What You Need to Know About Dating After a Trauma Bond. This episode is very important for me to talk about because, well, I'm going through my own trauma bond, and the trauma bond is blast from the past and his brother. Now, some people out there going, oh my God, really? You're just dwelling on it, Salty Vixen. No, I'm not. And whenever I talk about these trauma bond triggers, I've had people come to me stating, why do you care about them? You're so in love with him and this and that. I'm like, no, I've been over him for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, people who've never experienced a trauma bond don't understand what we're going through. And so thank God for social media. There are people out there who think like I have, who have gone through what I have. Now, what is a trauma bond? What is that? Well, it's when you've gone through an abusive relationship. Now, as you know, abuse can come in many forms. My ex-husband was financial abuse, sometimes physical, and he would take sex away. And definitely verbal was a huge, huge thing. And I would have never gotten together with my now ex-husband if the trauma did not happen the morning of Thanksgiving, about 4 to 4:30 in the morning of November 2004 with Mr. J. Mr. J was my old middle school crush, and I drove him home from a poker game. It was set up for me to drive him home, and he got a little touchy-feely to me, and I did not appreciate that. And then because I did not give in to sex, he called me a bunch of names, and then he told me he had a girlfriend, and that was fun. And then I told my friends about that, and they told me I was lying. I talked to mutual people that knew him, and they said, oh, you were just making that up because you once liked him. So I had no support. I was in shock with everything that happened, and I wrote everything down. I look back on it, I was in shock. I did not understand what trauma was. And, it's sad that I didn't have a support, but generally speaking, I think a lot of people have gone through trauma really don't have a support. Even when I look back in the 90s and 80s, for my peers, from what happened 93, 94 school year when I was yelled at so bad that I nearly ended my life. I mean, it was the worst abuse I've ever seen in my life or ever had. And it was verbal, all because of a stupid rumor that he believed in. And people go, why does that affect you? It's been 30 plus years. Who gives a shit? Well, that's the thing. It doesn't bother me on a day-to-day basis. It's when I'm triggered, when I'm feeling uncomfortable, I go back at that complex PTSD moment going, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'm ugly. No one should talk to me. And his self-esteem is so low because of what that guy has conditioned me. You see, he doesn't remember. If I had talked to him today, he'd be like, why do you remember that? He doesn't remember what he's done. A lot of people don't remember their teenage years, how the bullying affected other people. But unfortunately, bullying is a damage that does your mentality and your low self-esteem. I mean, people, like, if we go back to my high school years, people thought I was shy. I wasn't. I was standoffish because I wasn't sure if it was okay to talk to people. You see, that's what Mr. B had conditioned in my head. And because not one peer or my friends stood up for me, only person who ever stood up for me was Mr. J at the time. I'm here today because of Mr. J. I told him I'm ending my life. I went to the payphone at the middle school, and he was the only person who walked over to me after everybody laughed at me. I could still remember the cafeteria scene. I could remember what everybody was wearing. I could remember their voices. That's what happens with, a trauma. And how they all were looking at me and laughing. And I remember Mr. J hesitated. He called his now ex-girlfriend a female dog, and how dare you do it? Because she caused all this, all because I was math partners with him. I didn't ask to be math partners with him. Ms. Kapersky put us together. And it bothered that lady. I'll call her Karen. It bothered her because she wanted Mr. J all to herself. She was not very nice. I mean, honestly, anyone can remember this chick. She was not nice at all. They would get together, break up constantly. And I remember a few times she went to a different high school, but she came over for a basketball game and she saw me and she's like, Salty, Salty, I broke up with him. I know you want him. And I'm like, dude, leave me alone. She literally chased me down the hallway at the point where I went to the band room and saw my high school crush that became my major trauma bond years later. My point is, it's taken me a long time to realize that all this shit that's happened to me has built up in my mind over and over again that molded me for years to come. Like I said, if Mr. J did not do what he did, I would not have left Michigan. I would not have gone to New York State, Manhattan, to the charity event where I met Ivanka Trump. And I guess I met Donald. I met the boys that were there, his sons. It was a charity event. And then I stayed longer because I had nowhere to go. And then I met my now ex-husband through a friend of mine. And things would have been totally different. because I had no support. Even when like I said earlier, when I told mutual people that knew Mr. J who was friends with him, always supported him. So that guy probably got away with a lot of the women. From my understanding, at my 20th reunion, he did not go to high school, yet he was the most talked about person. So that was interesting. So let's go back to, unhealthy trauma bonds and why people don't understand it's not dwelling and loving that person. Yes, I do love that guy in an emotional trauma bond way, if that makes sense. If I was standing in front of him right now, I want nothing to do with him. I wouldn't even say hello. I'd probably give him the stink eye, to be honest. Well deserved after what he did to me. But it's not the love of I want him in my life. It's the abusive emotional bond. And people are going, what did he do to abuse you? Well, he had a wrath. I got the wrath a handful of times. Well, once from him. We'd messed around a couple times in high school. Then he avoided me for 3.5 weeks. So I thought, hey, it's my fault. I remember wanting to say something to his brother, but his brother terrified me because of what he did in 8th grade. So this goes on even throughout college. I remember this dude's, one of his mutual friends came to my college up in Canada. I was doing University of Western Ontario. I was doing music at the time. And the Robert Horn Percussion Ensemble came to play. I was so happy because I knew some of those people there. I was like, yes, the people I look up to. And this guy and I were about to make out. I have a picture with him actually right before it happened. And I stopped myself because I thought, oh my God, he's friends with that guy I used to like, but that guy's brother, what happens if he finds out? That's what was conditioned. Like I said, at the time, I didn't understand. And he goes, oh my God, you and the blessed and past dude needed to fuck it out, basically. You're never going to get over him. And at the time, I was like, but and the thing is, I wasn't having emotional attachment of, I want him in my life. Yes, if we saw each other, and we almost did. We nearly were going to ride together to get lessons from a percussion instructor. And I remember I did call him. And he said, yeah, I'm thinking about it. I said, yeah, I'm switching instruments because I was just done with music. I was about to be done. I was burnt out. Side note, we actually officially quit music the same time. Talk about funny story there. Or irony, whatever you want to call it. And but I never called him back because I was terrified. Oh my God, what if we take lessons together and I'm first to go and I fuck it up and he's going to yell at me? So this is what you call conditioning in your mind. It's all in your head, but because you've lived it, it's unfortunate. And I really don't think that they know what damage they have done. It doesn't matter. It's not like I'm going to, call them up, say, yo, what you did to me was not cool. Look, we're adults. We move on in life. But the worst thing is keeping inside of you. Prince Harry, he wrote the book Spare, had a ghostwriter. And I knew Harry quite well. I've known him since 2004. I haven't talked to him in years. Last time I talked to him was 2016. Actually, 18 June 2016, Beaufort Polo Club, because I was pissed off at him. There's a picture of me on Getty Images where I'm glaring at him. No, I wasn't glaring at him. I had glared at him before. I was really pissed off what happened in Lesotho between him and I. Side note, we got in an argument. He accused me of something, of being a fan because I accidentally broke his wine glass, which should not have been out there, Harry. And a few days later, he stuck his tongue down my throat to shut me up because I can't let things go. I'm sorry. Don't accuse me. Don't falsely make up shit. Sorry. So yes, I had a French kiss with Harry. Sorry, Harry. Your friend James Mead is a better kisser. That was the first guy I ever kissed. He's even better than Mr. J. Ha. Mr. J was the second guy I had my French kiss with in my life. Yes, I can remember. I have autobiographical memory. These are important events, But yeah, that's the last time I talked to Harry. But the point was, years later, he had the book Spare come out. And I remember thinking, what are you doing? Of course, he mentioned a guy in the book that sparked a trauma event that I had contacted the mutual people we know. It's like, I need to talk to you about this, what XYZ did. And he's like, oh my God, you come to England. I don't want you going to press about this. Let's keep it private. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to go to press. I don't want my name known for that. I don't want this is a long time ago, but we need to talk about it so I can move on. And that's what we did. And once I talked about it, that curse of trauma lifted finally. And you're going, well, what about this with your blast from past? Why hasn't it lifted? Well, because it goes a lot deeper. Like I said, this is a lot of stuff. It wasn't just our sexing affair. It was things that goes further down because I could never say no to him out of fear. See, people don't realize when you yell at somebody, and I don't mean just a yell. I mean, you yell in front of 102 members of a marching band that your voice echoes all because I sat down and get a drink of water and you thought I was flirting with your best friend. That's what happened. That's why he acted the way he did. And then did not apologize, even though his friends at the time told him to apologize. He said, I have nothing to apologize for. No. She did what she did. She needs to apologize to me. I swear to you, that's what he said. I wrote it down too. That's why I remember it. But, when you go through trauma, you remember things in a clear way that most people would not remember. He actually wanted me to quit playing that summer. He said, no, if she doesn't want to be here, she can quit. And I remember because that one girl who liked him a hell of a lot, like obsessively, to the point where she's like, I'm going to homecoming with him. Yes, I got a dress picked out, which was bullshit. Because she knew it bothered me how this guy once yelled at me. She didn't know the dynamic we had. And it was going way back further, It's the brothers. It's just they have that strong personality. That's why it's so easy for me to write BDSM stories, because I lived through the trauma. You see, my BDSM stories are not just, I create out of thin air. Any author who writes erotica, majority of the BDSM stories has to do with the authors had gone through a trauma of some sort. You see, when you read this smut, you're getting aroused by that. You don't realize these fictional characters came from some truth. So if you read something like, oh yes, I'm so turned on by you. Oh, I love the way you touch me. This, that. More likely, that person was SA'd. But they turn that trauma into something positive. Every author does that. So always remember that. My BDSM stories creating these fantasy characters, not them, it's the essence. It's helped me cope with things, the trauma bond. And after shit the fan with Blast from the Past relationship that ended, it's 2017 to 2019-ish. It's off and on. I shut down mentally because I had no support. And so I got into writing, and I was writing out my fantasies. Like I was taking our sex scene relationship, all the texts, and turning into some stories because it's the only way I could cope. And I went to see a therapist, and the therapist saw what I wrote. She's like, you're a great writer. Why don't you publish this stuff? Make some money. It's good for you. It's healthy. And the therapist was right. It was healthy to write and create this beautiful brand from all the shit that's happened to me. And I'm growing. My brand's doing great. And then I'm being cyberstalked by his side, his other half's family. One person for 3.5 years. This person was leaving me nasty messages in stealth mode. Like, why? Why are you hurt? I get it. You're pissed off of what he did. But he threw me under the bus. He's the one who lied. He made me the villain. And deep down that I'm not the villain in the story. But you don't know the full story because you only know the man that you married. You see, I know the man from far back. We didn't date back in the day. It's how his demeanor was with me and his brother too. So please leave me alone. I want to heal. I don't want to dwell on this shit anymore. I'm done. But unfortunately, the triggers were happening. Then I had some now former friends tell me it's wrong to write BDSM and take the trauma and turn it into something. I said, why? Why is it wrong? I'm not writing about him. I don't want him in my life. He's that part of me that I always will love in that trauma bond way, because I've never experienced true love. I've been married as abusive. See, there's a pattern. That's what the therapist said. Here's a pattern. I met my now ex-husband through a friend of mine. We got together because of the situation Mr. J did. It goes back to further what the brothers had done, because I let things affect me because I could not have a voice. I was afraid to speak up. And when I finally got to speak up with my now ex-husband, and after Blast from the Past situation, it was every single one of them told me it was wrong to have a voice. And it's taken me really up until the last few months. It's been 3.5 years since the Blast from the Past shit, right? It's taken the last few months for me to realize I have a voice and I'm a survivor of abuse, all forms of it, from many people. So I'm damn proud of Salty Vixen. But now you're going, okay, but why do you have the trauma bond still? Why haven't you gone over it? And the answer is simple. Because complex trauma includes a trauma bonded relationship that you've experienced some abuse, right? It's a history of it. And you need to work it out how to deal with the trigger so that unhealthy trauma bond goes away. There is no set time for healing. But when it's dwelled on, that trigger, instead of letting it consume you, which is what it did, it consumed me for a very, very long time because I had no support. And the therapist is great to give the tools, but still it wasn't helping me because I was still in the mentality, oh my God, I'm in the wrong. And part of it was I was worried about my former high school peers who knew them. I thought they're going to think I'm wrong for being Salty Vixen, and they find out the story. They're going to be on his side. That's what came to my mind. And I was afraid about being harassed. I was afraid about being bullied. That's what was all hitting me. Realizing they probably would be on my side if they knew the full story. And it's unfortunate. Now, dating itself can be uncomfortable for many, especially with the hookup culture all around us that reinforces, discards ghosting and narcissistic relationships as normal and views human connection as expandable and easily replaced. We know that. Swipe left, swipe right. I talk about this all the fucking time. And it can be tempting to forego dating altogether instead of swiping right into another mistake. However, dating after experiencing a trauma bond or a series of them can be more challenging for you if you aren't sure what you want in a relationship, or if you've not had a positive role model to teach you what a healthy relationship feels like. And that statement is 1,000% true. I've said it earlier. I've never experienced true love. I've never experienced passion. Yet I write about it because these are my thoughts, my desires. And something I've noticed with me, and I wrote this down, which I think is, this happens to a lot of people who've been through trauma. When I'm dating a guy, and now I've never had a healthy relationship, so it's hard to compare it to, but if we have more than a couple of dates and it starts to get intimate, I can't look him in the eye. And you're going, well, why? Because the minute I look him in the eye, that's the minute I've given my heart to him. And last person I did that was Blast from the Past guy. He's the only one that's seen the true inner Salty Vixen. He's the one who brought it out to me. But he lied to me. He used me for sex. Virtual sex. And it's disgusting that he did that. But he's a man. He probably wasn't getting much. That's why I was there. Just like back in the day from May 6, 1995. Yeah, I got my very first orgasm that came from him. And they got weirded out and acted like it did not exist for 3.5 years. Well, or 3.5 weeks, sorry. Turned out he had a girlfriend, did not know about that. So apparently I'm a helper with him. Yeah. Like I said, it's a trauma bond. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Him and I did have a connection. There's for sure. And I think if he and I explored that back in the day, it probably would have been 100% passion. It would have been. But unfortunately, it was more or less we were feeding off energy of each other, if that makes sense. But yeah, I can't look at a man in the eye when I'm on a date with them. I mean, I will a little bit when we're talking, but once it gets intimate, I can't. Even intimacy starts. Like the last boyfriend I had, I never given full passion to it. I don't feel comfortable because I don't know if the guy is pumping and dumping and moving on. That's been a history. Things have blast from the past. I'm serious. My ex-husband hated sex. He never wanted. Every time I wanted to have sex, he would tell me it's wrong to be aroused. It's wrong to feel this way. He had something psychological going on, obviously. All about the mother in his case. Yeah, by the way, his mother, funny story in that, which is not funny, it's kind of stupid, but his mother did not want any more grandchildren, so she wanted me to give documentation that I'm on birth control so my husband and I could be intimate. How effed up is that? Of course I didn't give it. I'm not that stupid. I'd rather forego sex than give in to demands that's stupid like that. Like, what the hell? That's what I'm talking about. I've been through a hell of a lot, but I don't let that take over my life. Yes, it's consumed me a little bit because it's taken me a while to understand I'm not at fault. That's what happens with trauma bond. And it's hard, when you want to get through the end of it. But like I said, people don't understand. When I post my vlogs on my Facebook page because it's triggered, I wish people go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But we all have our own lives. And so I'm not expecting that. But people are hardwired for a connection. Yet for anyone who has experienced chronic early trauma, me, the one thing we have not been taught is connection. We have been taught survival. We're shown what love isn't. We are taught that if we want attention, we have to perform, achieve, or accomplish in order to receive it. Exactly what I've been saying. Why Blast from Past is so strong in my mind and his brother, because I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm stupid. I got to quit. I got to work hard. This is what's been conditioned. This is what the trauma has been. We have learned that validation is fleeting and conditional. What was molded for us was toxicity and borderline rage. The wrath. My junior year band camp. That was fun. Yes, Blast from Past gave me his wrath. I talked about that earlier. We learned to carry our caregivers' unhealed baggage that they have yet to unpack for themselves. Fawning and people-pleasing became our norm. Stonewalling, contempt, insults, and begging and pleading were business as usual with our caregivers. Their unhealed resentment towards each other was taken out on us in form of emotional neglect or physical abuse. And we have learned how to duck and run. Hiding in our closet became a place to go to from all the chaos of our childhood world, and provided us with a small mental escape. And we create this fantasy world. Again, why authors are great at writing fantasies or painting or whatever, or music, is because we've been through some form of abuse. And, for me, when I can remember this, I'll tell the story. So it was my sophomore year of high school. It was I think school had just started, and did we get back from marching? Yeah, we got back from marching band. And I lived near the school, and I'd have the window open, I had my keyboard, and I would compose music, or take my drum pad out. And this particular time I had my keyboard, and I'm hearing Blast and Pass yelling at the entire drum line. And I hear my name echoing. I'm like, oh, he pissed off about something. What happened was that year, I played clarinet, and I was a magnet to bass drums. And way the halftime show was, I had to march backwards, and the chick named Lauren would not go back fast enough for me to get there. So she would yell at me saying, go slower. But she was like, she left a huge gap between her and a guy named Corn. I remember. I have an autobiographical memory. So anyway, I'm being yelled at by them, even though it wasn't at fault. Even the band teacher would yell at those people, those two. And as a result, I wasn't getting my spot fast enough, and the bass drums would hit me. And there's a point I did a somersault, and they're yelling at me. So Bless and Pass, being percussion overlord, because tired of the band teacher stopping because of my situation, and I'm embarrassed because I'm thinking everything is my fault. He watched everything happen. His arms were crossed, and finally he said, "We're going to fix this. It's our duty to make this better." And he saw what was happening. You see, he wasn't a bad man. I think the emotion just wasn't there, but he was the first person to see that I existed. That's what I'm talking about. I existed with him. That's why that bond was formed early on. It didn't form so much with him, but with him and I, when I was around him, I felt safe. I felt comfortable. And so that next day when they had, I think Wednesdays we had band off. And so percussion practice, that's when I heard my name. And the next day, the entire drum line's being nice to me. And then we practiced, and there was a gap where they did not run into me, and I'm not being yelled at anymore. I'm like, oh my God, he fixed that. First time someone cared, because my section didn't give a shit about me. Even my freshman year, I was a flute. They didn't want me in the section. But somehow the percussion saw that, every single one of them, and where I was stationed in my part in flute, they fixed their section so I could get to my spot in time. So I'm forever thankful for them. That's why I looked up to all of them, actually. They didn't know that I looked up to them, but I did. Because no one else cared about me. That's how I felt. And, but yeah, that's the stuff I can recall. I'm thinking about that now, one of many things. Or when people make fun of me, I would say, can I talk to you for a minute? He would see me crying. He's like, hey, Salty, don't listen to them. He would wipe my tears away a couple of times. I mean, he was a good person. That's what I mean. Like, I didn't understand, I guess part of me at the time was like, we liked each other. I mean, we were like a friendship or whatever, we didn't hang out as friends, but I mean, there was something there. Why didn't we ever date? It was a question I had for the longest time. But now I look back on it, it was emotional, bonded, it is what it is. I mean, it's in the past, but it's something interesting to talk about because he is always going to be strong in my mind. And it's a good thing. It really is, because it's helped me be a stronger person. But, there are people who have experienced getting their needs swept under the carpet, where they are constantly chasing crumbs of attention from their caregivers or their peers. And some of them don't have rules. They learn to parent, these kids learn to parent themselves with no rules, no guidance, no structure. They lacked boundaries, as well as an environment that promoted predictability, reliability, and consistency, where they have no curfew, skip school, and run with the wrong crowd, or may have become what society identifies as delinquent. A worst case scenario would be the narcissistic parent who reinforced their child's misbehavior because it fits their own agenda. For example, someone at home to keep them company, or someone at home to watch other siblings while the parent went out. And if these kids were lucky, they found support from a dedicated teacher who nurtured and guided them. If not, they often become another statistic. Another thing I could think about, the band room, and something that he said to me in middle school when I was 6 and he was in 8th, he said the band room is a place to go when you are feeling out of place, stressed, or sad or whatever. It's a way to heal. Even in high school, he used to say that to me. And I think a lot of people can say that. The band room was a place to heal from all the crap going on in your life. And I would say after school, and one time my grandmother came to the school and she goes, what the hell's the matter with you, Salty? Come home. I'm like, I'm here. I didn't want to be at home because of my mom's situation. I did not want to be home because I wanted to make friendship. I wanted to get out from my home. You're going, what's going on? Well, my mother couldn't raise me because she is, she's never been diagnosed, but I think she is bipolar. And my grandma and her would be at each other's throats. Mom wanted money constantly. Grandma would hand it to her. My grades were slipping. Grandpa's the only one who helped me with my homework. Grandma told Grandpa to stop because Grandpa works hard. And so, again, emotional bond with Blast from the Past was part of that too. I felt protected. I felt safe with him. I didn't have that in my own home. I mean, my mother come over screaming and I would turn my boombox on, or I play my clarinet, or till this day, I can play every percussion rhythm perfectly. I taught myself because it helped me get the noise of my mother having her fits out of my mind. It's kind of funny when I think about it now. I look back on it. And, when you've gone through all this shit, it does develop in your mind a trauma bond that's not healthy, obviously. And because I lived with that relationship with him, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get out of this shit from my now ex-husband, the abuse. Knight in shining armor once again. But turned out he lied, made me his virtual mistress, which is kind of ironic at this point. That's why I turned into, oh dear sir, I'm the femdom. I'm dominant. This is where it comes from, to play in words. So, because we do have a power play. Even when we would hang out, not really like hang out, but when we would text back and forth or in school, I would kind of play the game. He hated crying and I would cry. He thought I was shy, didn't give a shit. And when he'd walk away, I'd be playing my music hard perfectly. He made me nervous because I didn't want to mess up, and I messed up in front of him. So when he walked away, I was like, I got this. And he would hear it. And then one time he said to me, why do you play so well when I'm around? I'm like, because you make me nervous, dude. You know I like you. Duh. Isn't it ironic, right? But yeah, dating does get hard, and how to heal, honestly, it can take weeks, days, months, years, until really, in my opinion, until I find a healthy relationship. And that's the whole point of this podcast. I thought I got into a healthy relationship this past year with a wonderful man, but it just got so weird, odd. And we would hang out, but he never would take me on a date. I mean, and be honest, in the beginning, it was nice having a movie buddy to hang out with. That's what I wanted. I don't have a lot of friends. I don't let people in because I'm afraid I'm getting hurt again. But after a while, I was like, it's been several months. Why didn't he take me out on a date? Every time he planned a date, he'd cancel constantly. And I ended up breaking up with him. And then he sought me out, and it got frustrating because he somehow missed me, but he still hasn't changed. And people know what happened the last few days. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Tell me the truth. What's going on? And he still can't be honest, so whatever. But I've healed for the most part about Blast from the Past. I do want to say that. My triggers have definitely gotten better, but you'll see every so often, like, go, dear sir, I'm a mistress of words, not of you. That's because I was triggered, and I turned that into a storyline. I was triggered because of this current ex. And so for me, writing it out has helped the trauma bond triggers lessen. And that's a positive thing. Before, it would be weeks, months, because I felt I'm at fault. And also had a couple people reaching out to me. And I said, please don't talk to him. I don't want this going on because I'm terrified. They're like, we don't talk to him anymore. We haven't talked to them in years. I can't believe you've gone through all this. Like, wow. And when I open up more about what happened, people are going, holy shit, what the hell did he do to you? I said, both of them. Until this day, like, I know that they will probably hear this. I know the brother will hear my podcast at some point because I'm a public figure as an author. And my takeaway to his brother is this. You have no idea what the damage you have done to me, what you conditioned my mind from what you did in 8th grade. And because that day, when I opened up what your brother did, because I stood up for myself and I told his other half what he had did, and you told me I had no business telling her, and then you didn't even bother following up to see how I was doing, because this was a huge thing because you believed your shit your brother said, the lies. It affected me, dude, for a few years. My writing was a cry for help. My name, Salty Vixen, was a cry for help because I guess part of me wanted to hear from you. So we could have this powwow conversation, much needed conversation. But at the end of the day, it was never going to happen. And I created a wonderful business out of it, a wonderful brand. So Salty Vixen was Vixen in salty situations, turn negative to positive. And that's made me a better person. And I'm proud of that. I'm rebuilding my mentality. I'm getting rid of the toxic environment. And like I said, I made a wonderful brand. So many authors have done that. So many people that, even celebrities, and have turned the negative into positive. But now, as we get older, we talk about those experiences. So we don't talk about it to dwell on. We talk about, hey, this shit happened. This is my story. That's why Prince Harry wrote Spare, because he was so tired of his bullshit. He doesn't really talk to those people anymore. I know that. And it was for him to say, this is what happened to me. I don't give a shit what the press says. I don't give a shit what you have to say, my former friends and family members, whoever you are. I had to get my word out because you guys quiet my voice. I've been holding this stuff in me for years. I could not become the man I am today. That's my takeaway why Harry did Spare. My vlog isn't my takeaway. My brand, Salty Vixen, is my takeaway from the shit I've gone through. You two men took away my voice. Cannot take it away anymore. All right, my lovelies, I'm going to end this podcast by saying, I hope you have a lovely day. Until next time, this is Salty Vixen. Goodbye.
Come and share with me. So let's chat about the highs, let's chat about the lows. In this cozy little corner, anything goes. Every sip tells a story, every word brings a smile. With every conversation, we'll go that extra mile.